Welcome to Light the Path, the podcast that brings you inspiring stories of courage, strength, and faith. Listen in as we explore how God's love and grace can inspire and motivate us to overcome life's challenges and light the path forward.
Hey, Pathfinders. Welcome back to Light the Path podcast. You are in for a treat today. I know I say that every time, but it's always true, okay? Today, y'all know we're in the month of June. June is Men's Mental Health Month, Men's Health Month, okay? And I follow some great guys on social media. I know a lot of social media gets flack for, being negative and this and that, but I think it's your feed. Can I say that? I think it's your feed. I think you need to figure out who you're following. And if it doesn't serve you, it doesn't increase your, what you're trying to do in life, then unfollow these people. It's not that serious. But one of the people I follow, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm trying to contain myself, okay? Because y'all already know I can get plenty of ladies, women, the queens come on, they shed all these gems, and I love that. But when guys come on, it's just extra special. And today I have dougbopst. He is, let me read a little bit of his bio because y'all gonna like this. Listen, turn adversity into advantage. Now he's a podcast host, Adversity Advantage Podcast. And I mean, he's worldwide, okay? This is my famous people here. And from felon to fitness, these are descriptions of him. He helps people turn trials into triumphs. And today we're going to be talking about health is wealth. Okay, so help me welcome Doug to Light the Path podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. I am super excited. We already talked about this so many times before I hit record. But thank you for saying yes and talking about this today, because I think it's very important that I follow guys on social media, not just for, y'all's physique. I follow for the information because I love the way y'all think, and it's different from women. And so I appreciate all that you put out into the space, and I'm just appreciative.
Oh, thanks. That means a lot. I mean, and I'm glad I can come on here and share a little bit, and hopefully your audience gets some value.
Yes. Now, Doug is, we're turning the tables on him today because, he's a podcast of over 400 shows. What number are you on now? Do you know?
I think it's like episode 452, 453, something like that.
Yes. And if you all know about anything about the podcast space, when a podcast exceeds over 100, that's a good thing, because 100 episodes is hard. And usually people only do 1 or 2 seasons. So 400 plus episodes. I enjoy your social media. I enjoy the podcast. But what we're going to talk about today is health is wealth. And we're going to talk about that. But I want you to tell everybody your story and how you got into the fitness field, the fitness arena.
So I host a show called The Adversity Advantage, like you just mentioned. And growing up, I used adversity to my complete disadvantage. And my parents got divorced when I was young. I was bullied a lot in school. I was not good at sports, even though I love sports. Didn't have luck with girls growing up, just in a really dark place mentally. And I ended up getting addicted to drugs, ended up selling drugs. And then when I was 21, I actually went to jail. I was in jail on felony drug charges. And that's what ended up saving my life. When I was in jail, my cellmate got me into working out. And to give the audience a picture of like the guy I was before I started exercising, I had 21 jobs by the time I was 21. I was 50 pounds heavier than I am now. My diet looked like McDonald's, cheesesteaks, pizza, fast food, convenience store snacks. Like that's all I ate all day, every day. I was snorting hundreds of milligrams of Oxycontin up my nose every single day, selling a bunch of drugs to make money to support my habit, damage relationships, horrific relationship with myself, no positive outlook on life. And when I was in jail, my cellmate gave me some tough love. We were having a conversation in the cell one night after he'd asked me to start working out with him, he'd asked me to start working out with him like days before. And I was just like, dude, there's no way I'm working out. Like I could have been a model for Pillsbury at the time. Like there's no way I'm going to be able to work out with you. And he looked like a more jacked version of Brad Pitt from Fight Club. And so we're in this cell, and he starts to ask me questions about my story. He's like, why are you in jail? What happened? Tell me more about what got you here, etc. And I started to blame everybody for my problems but myself. I started to blame my parents for the divorce, started to blame the kids for picking on me. I started to blame the people that rejected me throughout the course of my life. And he looked at me and he said, quit being a victim. And it kind of struck me because in that moment, I wanted to be coddled and have somebody pat me on the back and say, it's okay, Doug. Like, if the world's against you, you can behave however you want. But this guy looked at me in the face and was like, I'm not going to treat you like that. I'm going to tell you the advice that you need to hear. And he said, like, listen, like, you're blaming everybody else for your problems but yourself. He's like, you chose to get yourself here. He's like, there's plenty of people that went through your experiences that aren't in this situation right now. And he essentially said, like, listen, you have two choices during your time here. Be a man, know that you got yourself in the situation, and then it's up to you to change, or be a victim and go cry in the corner and blame everybody else for problems and say, well, it was me. And of course, I didn't want to be the victim. I wanted to be a man, right? And I had also, the drugs had started to get out of my system at this point as well. And I had realized, like, I clearly didn't have everything figured out. Because I think when you're in the thick of addiction and, your life's falling apart, part of it, the defense mechanism is you act like you know everything, that everything's okay, in order to prevent anybody from coming in and giving you any kind of advice, and to also prevent you from taking any sort of accountability or responsibility for your behavior. So after that conversation, I felt incredibly inspired and moved to take some action. And with his motivation and encouragement, I went from being able to not do a push-up for my knees, not even being able to hold myself up to do a push-up in my knees, not being able to walk up and down the steps, to being able to do a set of 10 push-ups and run a mile by the time my 90-day sentence was over in jail. And that time completely shaped who I am today and transformed my life. I mean, just to give you an idea of my mindset, like, I cried the day I went into jail because I didn't want to go in, which I think is very common. But I also cried the day I left because I didn't want to leave, because of the transformation that had occurred. And I don't want to mislead somebody and just say, I know we're going to talk about like mental health, but I don't want to mislead people and say, yeah, just do push-ups and all your problems will go away. It's the downstream effects of what the push-ups and sit-ups did for my mental health that mattered. It was building discipline, getting comfortable being uncomfortable, facing my fears, doing things that I know I needed to do even when they got tough. It was staying consistent. It was finding new ways to manage my stress and anxiety. Like, that's all a byproduct of what fitness can do for you. And so, yeah, I mean, that became this massive catalyst for reinvention for myself. And the day I left, like I said, I cried because I didn't want to leave. And my cellmate gave me a workout plan that I still have framed here in my place, so I never forget where I came from. Got out, lost a bunch of weight, and then became a personal trainer to help other people transform their lives. And then that led into me speaking, writing a few books, doing podcasts like this, so that I can kind of pay it forward and help give people the gift of inspiration and motivation that I received when I was in jail.
I mean, and you've absolutely been doing that. 3 books, a plethora of podcasts, people on your show, and you being on other shows. So it's amazing how the connections between physical and then the mental, how that all plays a part. So what do you say are like some of the warning signs to maybe a guy that's listening? And ladies, y'all take note and share this with one of your guys that you love, because guys, y'all get other guys. So what do you say to the guys, like warning signs that, they need to take a mental health day, or they need to check in with themselves as far as their physical? Because sometimes, they're like, I'm a dad, I got a dad bod, like this is it. Like, how do you help people with that mentality when they come to you as a trainer?
Well, I think a couple things stick out. I mean, I think the obvious thing is like when people are not happy when they get out of bed for a period of time, and you're not going to feel great about yourself every single day. I mean, that's just not possible. But I think when those days kind of become more than less, I think that's a time to maybe, ask and get some help, see what's going wrong in your life. take some self-reflection, hire a therapist, whatever the flavor of self-help works for you. But I think the less obvious and the harder thing to look at is like that person's like role in their misery. Because if I were a betting man, I would bet that the guy that works out, hangs out with great people, gets great sleep, manages their stress well, avoids substances, not a smoker, eats well, has a spiritual relationship, gets outside, focuses on personal development. I mean, you see where I'm going with this. I would imagine the likelihood of that person having mental health issues is probably less than somebody who hangs out with jerks, goes out and parties every night, doesn't exercise, doesn't believe in anything other than themselves, feels sorry for themselves all the time, doesn't have a social life, right? So, and then the second thing like, requires somebody to take accountability for their actions, and it requires them to have self-awareness. Because it's easy to say, oh, I just don't feel like getting out of bed because my life sucks and like now I have mental health problems. But the hard part is like, well, why? I mean, because from what I've learned from personal experience and just talking to different experts, I think our choices do play a role in our mental health. And so I would invite that guy who's listening to this, even though it's hard, to, just take out a piece of paper and just write down like what you do on a daily basis. And you'll find out really quickly, like whether or not your choices are improving or improving your mental health or, making it worse. So I would honestly have somebody start there.
Yeah, that's a good start. And for anybody, you got to write these things down. Because sometimes we go through life, we're doing mundane things. Okay, this routine, and you see that you're slipping off. So writing it down is a good place to start. That's awesome. I definitely agree with that. So how do you balance you doing all the things that you do, your personal growth and committed relationships? Can we talk about relationships?
Sure.
Y'all want to know what is Doug available or not? But no, seriously, how do you maintain that? Because that is something business wise, you said about social activities, but then in a committed relationship, how do you balance those two?
Well, I mean, right now I'm single, but I think, when I've been in committed relationships, I think you have to put yourself first, and what I mean by that is you have to just make sure that you're happy without the relationship, right? Because if you're using a relationship to make yourself happy, I think it's a very slippery slope. Now, it doesn't mean that a relationship can't add value to your life, because that's what it's meant to do, right? But I think when you're not working on yourself and you're not making sure that you're still exercising and doing the things that light you up and taking time for yourself and getting good sleep and all the things that we know are good for you, you're going to end up having a poor relationship, I think, as a result of that. Now, when it comes to balance, I mean, listen, like, if you're not putting effort into a relationship, it's not going to go very far. So you have to just prioritize certain things, and you have to be really diligent about that. And you have to communicate stuff effectively. Like if you're in a new relationship with somebody and they want like all of your time, you have to communicate to them like, listen, like I like spending time with you. However, I also need to do these things for myself to make sure that I can show up to be my best self for the purpose of this relationship. And it's tough, right? Because I think people get so excited when they get into a committed relationship and they want to put forth all their effort into that. But it becomes a slippery slope, like I said, because if you start to formulate your identity into that, when things don't go well and the relationship ends, you're going to have a lot of resentment built up that you didn't maintain the momentum you had with your own personal growth. So I just think that, you have to find out what works for you, but you definitely have to maintain your routine when you're in a relationship and make sure you're taking care of yourself, and also just kind of communicating that to the person that you're dating. And also I think it's important to find somebody that's also invested in personal growth, or understands it at least like you are. Because if you have somebody that does not have a growth mindset, doesn't know what a podcast is, doesn't know what the personal development space is, and you're all about that, it's going to be really tough because they're not going to understand you wanting to go take a hike by yourself to listen to a podcast and get some peace and solitude, or they're not going to understand potentially like wanting to like read some sort of relationship book together if your relationship's kind of on the rocks a little bit. I mean, they're not going to understand those things. So I think it all goes back to alignment, values, communication, and just making sure again that you're prioritizing yourself and that you're also figuring out how you can prioritize the relationship as well. And that all comes down to alignment, values, and communication.
Yes, absolutely. Now, your cellmate you never ask your cellmate for help. So how do you ask for help? How do y'all guys ask for help in difficult situations? You were in a difficult situation. You were locked up.
Yeah.
You never came to and said, bro, I need help, because it's difficult to ask for. He just told you, like, man up, right? How do you ask for help? How does a guy ask for help when he's bogged down with all these things? No, he's not in prison, but he has work, the kids, all these other things. How should they ask for help?
It can be tough, right? Because I think if you're in a relationship and especially if you're married with kids, like you don't want to be a burden, right? Like, I think that's the guy's default is like, I don't want to be a burden to my family. I don't want to be a liability. I think it's why it's so important to have like a good circle of people around you that you can lean on, that you can trust. That's why it all comes back to that, right? And I say that because I think sometimes when I'm struggling now, which does still happen, I'm able to call somebody that I trust and be like, hey, like, I'm really struggling in this area of my life. Can you give me some feedback? Or I said something to this person I should have said. Can you help me understand this, or help give me some constructive criticism on how I could have handled it better? So I just think that you have to ask for help if you're struggling, because if you don't, your life's just going to get a lot worse. Now, how you do that, I mean, it's different for everybody. I always tell people, like, if guys come to me, it's like, think about the person that you trust the most in your life, and the person that you feel most comfortable with, call them and just say, hey, listen, like, this is hard for me to talk about. I don't even really know how I'm processing everything, but I'm struggling right now. I'm going through this. Like, I need some help. And I think 9.9 times out of 10, you'd be surprised at how receptive that other person is to helping you, especially and that's why I say pick a person that you trust and that you care about each other, because it's like if somebody you care about calls you and says, I need help, like, what are you going to tell them? Oh, call back in 2 weeks. You're gonna be, no, like, how can I help you? Like, let's get this done right now. And then if you don't have friends, like if you're somebody who's like, I don't have anybody I can trust, there's plenty of support groups on Facebook. I mean, social media for mental health stuff. So there's no excuse as to why you can't reach out and ask for help in some capacity, whether that's calling a mental health hotline, whether that's people in your circle, or whether that's just simply making a post in a mental health Facebook group. And, you can, and just saying like, hey, listen, like, I this is really hard for me to admit. I'm struggling with this, that, and the other. I need some guidance. What can I do?
Yeah, all good stuff. All good stuff. Guys, we want y'all to open up. I know it's hard, and sometimes it's hard for guys, and I understand this because I've heard guys say that they've opened up to somebody. I mean, I'm just saying a woman possibly, and it went left. And so don't be afraid. Use these other avenues also that Doug talked about, because I think that's very important. So Doug, my final question for you is for you just to speak a word of encouragement to guys to get their physical together, so that way they can get their mental together and they can sort of teeter-totter each other. What would you say to a guy for an encouragement that's going to listen to this?
Well, I mean, there's a lot, and I wish I had like the magic pill answer, right? I think for guys, it's important to remember that you're not alone. You're not the only person who's struggling with this. And to also know that if you're still here for a purpose and meaning, and that there's a good chance that there's a good chance that you're gonna do something great with your life. I think when it comes to mental and physical fitness, like, listen, there's nothing better than physical fitness as far as improving your mental health. Because a lot of times when people are struggling with their mental health, and this, I'm just talking from a general perspective, I'm not talking about like extreme cases. A lot of people are feeling insecure, hopeless, unconfident. They're ashamed of the way that they look. They don't have good people skills. They're stressed out. And fitness can certainly help you improve your self-confidence, can help you feel more secure with yourself. When you work out, you typically spend time with people that are also working out when you're going to a gym. When you work out, you get the feel good endorphins going. When you work out, you improve your sleep, you reduce your stress, you are goal oriented, you're thinking towards the future, so that if you are depressed or kind of feeling a certain way about something that just happened, this kind of can help get your mindset like pointed in a different direction. So I can't say enough about the importance of physical exercise. And I think that, as guys, there's not many other things you can do that can give you the benefits of, like I said, improving your self-confidence, your self-worth, your self-esteem, your sense of security, your sense of purpose, community, etc. So highly encourage it. Even if it's like the smallest thing, like so many people think that they have to just go to the gym like 5 or 6 days a week. I think one of the biggest wins for people who, especially if you haven't exercised in a long time, just to go for like a short walk, because what happens is you're like, all right, I'm going to go for like a 5-minute walk. You put your shoes on, you're outside. You're like, well, that feels good. And I'm already out here. I might as well go like another 5 minutes, right? I didn't just put my shoes on and walk, X amount of feet just to go for 5 minutes. And because guys are kind of like egotistical in that way. They're like, I can do more, right? And then they come back in like, wow, that felt great. And I'm so glad that I did this. And I'm so proud of myself for actually taking that first step. And then that 10 minutes turns into 10 minutes a few days a week. That 10 minutes turns into 12 minutes a few days a week, 15 minutes. And then sure enough, like a few months later, you're either outside, now you're jogging or running, or you're at the gym taking some workout classes. And it was just all started from small wins at the beginning and then stacking momentum. And then that just carries on, throughout the following like weeks, years, and months. So it's like, I highly encourage people just to get moving in whatever way they can right now.
That is so good. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Let everybody know where they can connect with you on social media.
Thank you again for having me on. You can find me anywhere at Doug Bopst on social media. And then the podcast is The Adversity Advantage. And that's anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. But thank you again for having me on, and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much. And remember, everyone, sharing our experiences is not only empowering, it can help